Let's go for it!
I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff. I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff.
Hey everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, here, the host of the Dark Stuff channel. Thanks a lot for checking out my new video. Apologies to those who have been anticipating a new video since my last one, which was a few months ago when I did my best of 2019 video. I've given other excuses for why I'm a little bit light on the videos, but I guess I'm just going to come clean. It's not like it's some embarrassing situation, but for the past, I don't know, 8-9 months or so, I've had somebody living here in the house, a friend of mine who was a little down on their luck, having some problems, and I have allowed them to stay here in the house, and they basically stay down here in the basement. And it's been 8 months, which means my time down here is limited, because when they're down here, I usually stay upstairs, or I'm at work or whatever. So it's kind of limited me from being able to fully, do my thing here. And I've wanted to make videos in the past few months, but they're just never enough time. And then when I do have the room to myself, sometimes I don't really feel like doing it. I think that situation's going to be over in a couple of months. I'm about ready to give a deadline on when I can, when I need the house back and everything, but that still hasn't come up yet. So hopefully this person doesn't see this video before we have that talk. Anyways, it's been a good year so far. I'm recording this at the end of February on the 27th. I don't know when it'll get out, hopefully within a day or two. But I just thought, I'll run through a couple of things. This will be a big hodgepodge video of all the stuff I've been meaning to get to in the last couple of months, but just haven't had an opportunity. So there won't be any concert footage. I've seen some shows, but I didn't film. I saw the New Pornographers a couple weeks ago with Nico Case. They were great. They had a no photo policy, and I decided to respect that and not take any pictures. I also saw a Rush tribute band, and you could take pictures of them, but I didn't feel like, why would I take pictures of them considering they're not the real guys? Anyways, so let's just start off the show, because I just mentioned Rush, with the Rest in Peace segment. There are two very significant artists that have passed away in the time since I last made a video. Probably more than two, but I'm saying only two that are really relevant to me. The first one, of course, mentioning Rush, is Neil Peart, the drummer and lyricist of Rush. I've been a Rush fan since the 80s. They're not one of my major bands. You don't see any posters of them around the bunker down here. But I've always liked them from back in the day when I was a teenager and they were good stoner rock or whatever, to when they got a little more sophisticated. And then there was a period where I kind of got it out of them because the prog thing still is just not my scene. But I probably haven't heard a new Rush record since Hold Your Fire, which I think was 1987, and I believe I saw them on that tour, and that was the one and only time I ever saw Rush. They came back a couple of times before they retired from touring, but I just never made it over there. Again, I do love Rush, and I respect Neil Peart as a musician, as a lyricist too, even though I think Ayn Rand is a terrible writer and is somebody that should not really be admired because their ideas are really stupid and ridiculous and hateful. I know that's not where Neil Peart's interest in Ayn Rand is. If you listen to the song Anthem or The Trees or the beginning of 2112, that's a lot based on Ayn Rand. She sort of does the doctrine of selfishness or whatever, all about don't help other people, just focus on yourself and whatever. Neil made that into a much more interesting and nicer way of putting things. But if you do listen to old Rush, there are a lot of his lyrics that are critical of communal things, of doing things for the good of everyone and focusing more on doing for yourself. That's the Ayn Rand influence. That stuff ended by the mid-70s, and he's been into all sorts of other stuff. And so, I have a lot of respect for him, because as a songwriter and as a lyricist in the rock realm, you usually don't tie in philosophy and science fiction and all sorts of other stuff that he did. So he was I consider him an intellectual and, of course, a fantastic drummer, maybe the best of all time. Who knows? Anyways, rest in peace, Neil. And, you're definitely going to be missed. I saw this Rush tribute show, which by coincidence and by luck happened about a week after he died. So there was a lot of new interest in Rush. And so this was like a almost sold out show in a club. The group was called the Rush Tribute Project, and I guess if they come to your town, I wouldn't say don't go see them. They were pretty good. I mean, their thing is they don't exactly look like Rush. I mean, they're not trying. It's not like Kiss where you can put makeup on and you can just look like them, to a certain degree. They're going strictly for music, and they do cover the gamut, So what I liked about them was I think that musically they were very tight. I'd give the drummer about a B+. He's still very, very good, better than most drummers. But when you're mimicking Neil Peart and the way Rush fans know every single drum fill and every single cymbal hit and whatever, if you miss one or you're slower or whatever, you notice it. And even me being a more casual fan, I noticed when I was like, oh, he's supposed to go, right there or whatever. Anyways, they were very good. The guy who does Alex Lifeson was amazing. He gets an A+. He had all the right guitar tones. If they were doing a 70s song or they were doing an 80s or they were doing whatever, and it was just like, it sounded exactly like the way it was supposed to sound. The Geddy Lee guy also gets probably an A. His voice was a little forced. You have to force yourself into that upper register.
What about the voice of Geddy Lee? How did it get so high? I wonder if he speaks like an ordinary guy.
But the fact that he handled keyboards and bass and sang, was pretty good. I would say they focused a little bit too much on 80s. They come out and they're doing, they did Time Stand Still and they did some other 80s hits, which I could have forgotten. But if you like you run the gamut of Rush and you like all of their stuff, then this is a good thing to see. So I'd give it a recommendation there. The other person who died over the last few months was Andy Gill of the band Gang of Four. Hard to overstate how important Gang of Four is. They're not as well known as, say, Rush, but they're just as influential, in my opinion, because of what they did in the late 70s, early 80s. Just a fantastic band, a great mix of punk rock, of funk, of post-punk, of some avant-garde, mixed with very left-wing political ideals and lyrics. And you can get that from the name Gang of Four. Google it or whatever. You'll see what I mean. Just a really genius band, and even when the band dwindled down to one original member and it was just Andy Gill and some substitutes, I saw them a few years ago, and it was a great show. I loved it, even though I was jokingly referring to them as Gang of One because it only had one original member, but they fucking rocked. And when they played stuff off Entertainment or Songs of the Free or whatever, it was really, really good. So, I don't think they can continue on with no original members. I think they needed Andy Gill. They did just release a new album. I haven't heard it or anything, but I may check it out. I mean, I don't know. On the last Gang of Four album that they put out a couple years ago, featured a lot of guest vocalists, so they weren't necessarily using their guy that they have in the band. Alison Mossart sang a track. That's why I'm more familiar with it. But anyways, rest in peace, Andy. Hugely influential. If you don't own the album Entertainment by Gang of Four, I suggest you go get that, today. So for the rest of the video, I'm just going to show some pickups and some new stuff that I've been listening to. Not all of it I've heard all the way through, so I'm not going to give a detailed review. Just going to more or less say that I got it and whatever. But I'm going to start off with this. This is from my buddy Chris, Final Transmission. Haven't seen you in a while, man. I don't know what you've been doing. You're still on Instagram, but I don't see you much on YouTube. And this is a Uriah Heep album called The Magician's Birthday. Now, I picked it up for him, not to give to him, but, thinking of him while I did it. And the reason why is this. He and I think, are sort of similar type people. We're roughly the same age, have a similar background, etc. And one thing that we have is an older kind of classic rock band that is our favorite above everybody else. And then the rest of our taste in music is largely pretty different than that. For me, that's Kiss. Okay, Kiss is my all-time favorite band, but almost everything else that I like is nothing like that. It's the complete antithesis of Kiss. And I think that's what Chris is with Uriah Heep. They're like his all-time favorite. And then all the rest of this stuff is nothing like Uriah Heep, but, they're as far and above favorite band. I've been trying for the last year or two to find a Uriah Heep record that connects with me, and I haven't done it quite yet. I've got maybe 3. This is my 3rd or 4th one. And again, this was decent, but it just didn't, again, it didn't really lock into me. I'm going to give it another listen. There's a little bit, some prog on side 2 with a 10-minute song, and I can't deal with that. But for the most part, I'm still trying, buddy. And if you want to recommend, my taste a little bit better now. If you want to recommend one, I'm all ears. But again, this one, Uriah Heep, not working for me just yet. Maybe I'll come around at some point. Okay, so next up, I wanted to show you the new Cursive record. This was my #1 album of 2019. Sorry about that crazy glare, but it's in the packaging and it's still in the shrink. So this is Cursive. The new album is called Get Fixed. It came out towards the end of last year digitally, and when I put it as my #1 album of the year, I did point out that, yeah, it wasn't physically out there, but it's worthy. It's released in 2019, and it is my #1. So for you guys that didn't get it digitally and are just about to get it physically, maybe it will be in your best of 2020. I don't know. It is fantastic. Okay, this is the record. It's amazing. I got it from the label 15 Passenger, which is the label run by the guys in Cursive. They sent me this. They sent me a Cursive iron-on patch along with it, which is kind of cool. And then, let's see here. A little pin with the artwork there. And a Cursive koozie. Cursive Get Fixed. And it's got that little scissor thing logo on the back. So that was really cool. So again, I recommended this in my last video. It was my #1 of 2019. Now it can be your #1 of 2020. Get this new Cursive album. It is really, really intelligent, edgy punk rock with great lyrics, great performances. That's all I can say. If you're unfamiliar with Cursive, this could be a good place to start. Maybe you want to start with the Ugly Organ from back in 2003, but you can certainly start here. A great one from Cursive. In that same package, they sent me the new album from the band Criteria. Now, these guys are from Omaha. I know one of the guys. I know Steven Peterson. He's the leader of the band. He's the guitar player and singer. This is their first new album in 15 years. The story with Criteria is that Steven Peterson was the original member of Cursive. He was their lead guitar player back in the 90s. Cursive broke up right after recording their second album, so before it was even released, Cursive was over. They were gone for a year. Peterson left, moved to, I think, North Carolina, and then Cursive got back together a year later, only he was already committed to being in North Carolina. I think he was going to law school or something, so didn't come back. Ted Stevenson came in. He's been the lead guitar player ever since. But they were friends. It wasn't some non-amicable breakup. I mean, he just moved on with his life. So Criteria's made a couple of records, but he really has focused down on, his job and family and all of this. And Criteria plays annual shows in Omaha right around Christmas time. They're always packed to the gills with all the Omaha scenesters and all the older people who remember them. And now they finally recorded a new album. They were out on tour with Cursive earlier in the year. This is fucking amazing. Almost as good as that Cursive record, honestly. It's edgy. It's like maybe you could call it post-hardcore. You could call it math rock or a more aggressive indie rock. It's a little heavier than the average stuff, definitely heavier than Cursive, but not metal, but just heavy, loud guitars. Anyways, Criteria Years, this is worth picking up as well. And also in that package was this one from Camp Dogs. It's an album called Riders in the Hills of Dying Heaven. Now, I talked about their album last year and how great it was. I thought this was a new record. It isn't. This is 15 Passenger reissuing their older record, which was on I think, self-released in Chicago only. So it's now out there. It's great. Last year I said that it reminded me of Lone Justice, which is a reference that nobody gets. But it's great indie rock with a woman singer, real gritty, just good stuff. I mean, again, Camp Dogs, Riders in the Hills of Dying Heaven. I've got a series of new release CDs that I'll just burn through real quickly. I'm not going to really give reviews because most of these I haven't given enough attention to really give a discussion on it, but they're all good, and so I want to at least make some mention of it, just so I can have it on record. First one is the new Not a Surf, Never Not Together. Been listening to this band for 25 years. This is their newest. It's upbeat, nice indie rock. Songs are about love and this kind of thing. They're never really edgy or negative or a downer. They're always just kind of like, hey, they're basically happy in life. I mean, there's some downer songs, I guess, but for the most part, another good addition, I should say, to the Not a Surf collection. I didn't even know these guys were still together. This is And You Will Know Us by The Trail of Dead. This is their 10th album, which is called Into the Godless Void and Other Stories, or The Godless Void and Other Stories. And it continues on where Trail of Dead has been in the past, which was starting with a very Sonic Youth-esque sound, and they still do have that sound. They've got their own elements to it. You could throw in some other references, but I say if you like Sonic Youth, you probably would like these guys.
Everything has changed.
I've been really waiting for this one to come out. This is the new Best Coast album, Always Tomorrow. And if you remember back to 2016, if you've been watching me that long or whatever, you know that their last album, California Nights, was either my number 1 or number 2 of that year. It was so great. It's fantastic indie pop, female-fronted band. They're really just a two-piece. In the past, the songs have always been sort of negative and cynical and, why do I suck at love and why does the world against me and why do people all constantly giving me shit and whatever, put in a package of really excellent 90s alternative style pop music and like bands like Belly, Throwing Muses, etc. And it was just exceptional and a little element of shoegazy kind of guitars. And California Nights was the pinnacle of that. I mean, everything on that record was perfect. They've been gone for 4 years, and I wondered what was going on. Turns out that the lead singer here, Bethany, recently got sober, and after having a drinking problem for a long time, drinking and drugs, and she's got completely sober, and that has completely changed her outlook on life. And you could really summed up in this song, Everything Has Changed, which is very straightforward. Every single thing in her life has changed. And she talks about all the various ways, she's cooking for two now. She's involved in a good relationship. Criticism just kind of bounces off of her. She's in this great place. So that's the theme of the album. Musically, it's a little different too, because they don't have that cascading guitar, the sheen as much. It's still guitar, but it's mixed in with other instrumentation. It's just done a little bit differently. Still very good. Is it as good as California Nights? No, but a band can only have one greatest album. And then no matter how good you are after that, you're still going to be measured up next to that greatest album. So it comes close. It's definitely worth getting. And if you like that sort of 90s style female, and it's guitar stuff. I'm not talking about, Sarah McLachlan or something. I'm more talking about women that played guitar. Good stuff. The new Best Coast. Been waiting 4 years for this. About time.
Changed.
I've talked about the Mommy Heads a lot on this show, mostly because they're an obscure 90s band that I really liked that most people don't. Well, they've been reissuing a lot of their old stuff lately. They've had new albums, 2 new albums in the last 2 years, and I talked about those. This is their self-titled album, not their debut. Came out in 1997. It was their lone major label release on Geffen. They put it out. It's produced by Don Was, who's worked with artists like the Rolling Stones and Ringo Starr and, you know, all of these major artists. The album came out, and within days, it just was over. You know, their label Geffen went through a big firing, and their A&R person was let go, and the band was basically dropped, and their career kind of ended. They came back about a decade later, and they've been slowly, you know, getting back into the swing of things with new material. But now they finally, because this album has been out of print and gone for years, they have reissued it themselves with an extra track. So this is the Mommy Heads album. You find it on their Bandcamp. I think you can order it through them if you can't find it in the store. But definitely do. This is their pinnacle, in my view. They shook off some of the quirkier, indie sounds, and they were a little bit more straightforward, which could be a negative, but it wasn't in this case. This is just fine, finessed, classic-sounding rock. Not classic rock, classic-sounding rock. So if you look up Don Was and see the kind of artists that he works with, you'll see why Mommy Heads fit into that and what this record is like. I think it's really great. It's worth looking up. I'm glad to see that they're back. Still waiting for Adam Cohen to come to Omaha and be here in the bunker. He said he was going to come here and we can do an interview. So we'll see what that happens. But anyways, the Mommy Head self-titled has now been reissued. I picked up the new album from Beach Slang. I keep hearing such great things about these guys. I have their previous records that I've gotten as promos. This one is assisted by Tommy Stinson. He plays on the record or an engineers part of it. And everyone says, oh, you must like Beach Slang because you like the Replacements. I don't hear the Replacements connection that much. I mean, I don't really. I think this is really, really good. And I get it's kind of got that 80s Minneapolis, Midwest kind of feel. But I don't see it as the Replacements. I mean, I don't know. I do like this record. It is catchy. It is good. I don't think it's quite as intense as their last two. But good stuff nonetheless. Beach Slang. And the album is called The Deadbeat Bang of Heartbeat City. New Beach Slang. Good stuff.
Trying to figure out the expense, stabbing the fist in the draw, say darkness and battered by experience.
The new Drive-By Truckers, The Unraveling. This is a must here. Okay. This one, and not as a promo, bought this sucker at the store. This is fantastic. If you like the Drive-By Trucker sound, which is to say not alt country, but southern rock, and you want the lyrics to be edgy, this is it. This is summing up what the fuck is going on in this country. If you're not from the United States, if you're one of my viewers from outside of the United States, hopefully things are going well in your country. Here in America, this country's turning to shit, and it is really going downhill fast. I think people are just off the fucking rails. We're in a really bad spot here in the United States. This album sums up my feelings on it. I mean, there's just songs like Thoughts and Prayers and Rosemary with a Bible and a Gun, Armageddon's in Town, Babies in Cages. It is very relevant to what's going on today. I don't know if that means in 2 years it'll seem dated or not, but who gives a fuck? Because right now, this is the antidote. This is what we need. We need more stuff like this, and that Cursive record, which deals with a lot of the shittiness of what's going on in the United States. And if you know of some others that are current, I don't want to talk about the 60s and Crosby, Stills, Nash. Don't give me that shit. If you know some current other artists that are serious protest artists that are singing accurately and well in an interesting way about the decline of America and how terrible it is right now, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear it. Guided by Voices, of course, has another new record. This one's called Surrender Your Poppy Field. It's their first new one of 2020. They'll probably have 2 or 3 more. I haven't given this one much of a listen yet, so I can't really comment on it, but they have been on a bit of a hot streak lately, so I'm anticipating good stuff from that one. Lee Ronaldo from Sonic Youth, he has a new album out. It's called Names of North End Women. And this one is a collaboration with this guy named Raul Refri. I don't know anything about the guy, but I do know he produced the last Lee Ronaldo album. And so when they signed him up to produce this album, apparently it went so well that he gave him co-artist credit. Again, I've just barely started listening to this one, but new Lee Ronaldo is exciting for me anyways. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is the debut solo album from Greg Dully. This one's called A Random Desire. Cool little fire picture there. Greg Dully, the longtime lead singer of the band Afghan Wigs. He has a couple other groups, but Afghan Wigs is his primary. And this is his first solo record in 30 years of making music. I was surprised to hear that, but no, it's true. Again, I've just started listening to it. It doesn't sound like Afghan Wigs, so there is a definite distinction there, but Dully's voice is the key ingredient, and it's all over this thing, you know. So that's pretty much the end of what I wanted to do for this video. I just want to get, when I could squeeze a little time in. Also, I got a new turntable. It's a Techniques. It's a late 70s model that a friend of mine bought and reconditioned and sold it to me. And my old turntable was working just fine, but I had jacked up the grounding piece, and I broke it off, and so it was very hard to just sort of wiggle it into the spot. And so I was using a preamp because I could just sort of stick it in there, and then if I wedged the preamp just right, it would hold its place. Other than that, I'd get a lot of noise and buzz. So I wanted to get a new one because I just didn't feel like getting that one repaired. It didn't seem worthwhile if I could get a new table that's good for $100. And so that's what it was. I bought the new Techniques, reconditioned, $100, semi-automatic. It's great. I'm very happy to have it. When it gets to the end of the record, it picks up and goes back. Because sometimes I'll fall asleep and then the record will just be, you know, and that's terrible for your turntable, for your record, whatever. Anyways, that's all I got to say. I just want to make sure I can check in. Hopefully I'll be able to get back to you sooner rather than later, but it's good to see all of you guys, and take care. Bye-bye.